Hi, welcome to the new video. Here in this particular video, I am going to discuss about Docker Compose file. What exactly the Docker Compose file is, and what is the core structure of it, and how the service configuration is done within the Docker Compose, and how the volume and network will be configuration done, and what exactly the workflow and some commands and some real world example use case how the docker file will be end to end. Okay, so without further ado, let's enter into the video. First of all, docker file, sorry, compose file. Basically a compose file is a YAML configuration. Okay, YAML is a one of the language which is yet another markup language, where in this particular file we are going to define and manage a multiple docker containers as a single application stack. Okay, remember one thing, which is YAML configuration file, and we are going to manage a multiple docker containers as a single application stack. If you see in the market, you may confuse like different terminologies or different technologies like a docker compose file and kubernetes docker swarm, like that. Okay, what exactly makes the difference of this? Basically, docker compose file, let's say if you have a single application stack, but it has a multiple docker containers, so in that particular case, to manage them we require docker compose file. Okay, that is the use case of docker file. And whatever we see docker swarm or container, sorry, kubernetes, those are orchestration platforms. Let's say if we have multiple missions, multiple containers is running, so to orchestrate them, that will come into picture. As of now we are dealing with a single application but with multiple containers, so here compose file will come into picture. So if you see like what might be the reason for multiple containers in a single application, there might be a real applications like having a multiple applications like database in one container and web app in one container, cache maintaining in one container, load balancer in one container, like that. Okay, each service basically runs in a its own container, which is isolated, and it will be helps to scale the individual components. That is the main purpose and why the like multi-container came into picture, and why the docker compose file came into picture. Okay, let's say if you are managing a single application stack, okay, but it has a multiple containers. So before uh, docker compose, like how exactly the traditional model is doing and how the docker compose is doing, let's have a small comparison analogy on this. So before docker compose, we manually run the each application. Okay, so after the building the application, we need to run this particular nginx, and we need to run SQL, we need to run Redis. In this particular case, we need to run your database, we need to run your web application, we need to run your cache, load balancer, like that. Different containers, like separately we need to run. Okay, so if we configure a docker compose file, then with a single command, with this command docker compose up, okay, so all the services will start together and all the containers will up and running. That is the like major advantage, or why the docker compose came into picture. uh, Basically it will some benefit regarding the DevOps uh, of docker compose file was, it will maintain a consistent environment across the development, staging and production. Okay, basically one command to rule the all. That is the like motto of coming the docker compose. Okay, and coming to the core structure. Okay, I will show the example also, how exactly the YAML format we need to write, and uh, some keywords. Okay, so here the main keywords was version, services, networks, volumes. Okay, so these are the like main components we need to configure in the YAML file. So basically YAML file, like YAML configuration file, it follows a indentation, so we need to use a two spaces. Okay, and we need to have a key value pair, which is in Python we use the dictionary, right, for storing key value pair. Like that here we need to store key value pairs, and in this format key colon and then value. Okay, and basically list uses dash. Okay, dash plus space, that is basically list, and comment uses a hash. These are some general basic rules whenever you are entering into any language. It's kind of rules for YAML language. Okay, and coming to the main keywords, as I said, version, service, network, volumes. Basically, the version is a Docker Compose file format that will deals. Okay, there will be a dedicated versions. We can use that version name. Okay, version number actually. Okay, and coming to the services, we are going to define what exactly your components, let's say web application, database, like that. Okay, that is about services. And coming to the networks, where we are going to define a custom networks for communicating the each container. Okay, like to intercommunicate between the containers. And coming to the volumes, to maintain a persistent data storage. Okay, so by defaultly containers don't store the data. We need to explicitly maintain your volumes to store the particular data. Okay, let's say if we restart the container, or if we update the container, then the whatever the data holds or logs is there, that will be lost if you don't maintain volumes. So that is also comes into picture. Okay, this is the just a basic structure: version, services, networks, and volumes. So this is a basic structure. The structure, it is not clear here. I will show you in a small notepad. Let me open a notepad. Yeah, if you see here, this is the basic structure of the YAML configuration file for compose. Okay, Docker compose file. Okay, so we are going to define the version, and then services, and then networks, and then volumes. Okay, and in the version we are going to specify the version in a double quotation, like 2, 3.1, 3.8, like that. Okay, for more information about the version, you can refer the official documentation, like what exactly the stable version. It is just a kind of like, I think there is no much difference in making a version number. Okay, change. And coming to the services, we are going to define like what exactly the service. We are going to discuss about more in the future. Okay, so here I just wanted to tell you like what exactly the basic syntax we are following. Okay, so as I said, the version and services, we can define multiple services, and networks also we can define multiple networks. As of now I shown only one network, and volume also we can show the multiple, but as of now only one. This is the like basic syntax how it was. Okay, and moving back to our presentation, and also one more important thing, we need to make sure the Docker file will be written like this only, with dot YAML as a extension. Okay, docker hyphen compose dot YAML, or compose dot YAML, not YAML, it is YML. Okay, so this is very much mandatory. How we are working on GitLab, we use dedicated Docker, sorry, GitLab file name, right? So likewise here also we need to use a dedicated file structure while defining the name. Okay, and now coming to the first component, I mean, or first component is com first component was version. There is no much to discuss about the version, so I directly enter into the second component, which is service configuration. So here there are certain more detailed information we need to specify in the service configuration. If you see, service have a multiple options, like image, basically like what exactly the uh, from registry which image we are using. Okay, uh, and a build, it is basically a build from Docker file. Okay, so we need to give a Docker file path there, okay. And ports, we need to map a container ports to the host, okay. So we are going to give both of the ports, like the expose port in the container as well as the expose port in the host machine also. And environment, we need to set up the environment variables if you want, and this is also optional, and depends on, we can also set a sequence. Let's say if one service is interdependent on another service, let's say web application which requires a database. In that case, first we need to start a database, then we need to go with web application service, okay. So volumes also, we can mount a files or directories, this is also one point, okay. And this is a like a small example for port mapping ports. This is the host machine port, and this is the uh, container port, okay. That means your application will be served in 80 port in container, and you can access in the outside world in 80. That means your host machine, okay. That's what here explained. And this is a kind of example. Again, the format is not that clear. I will show again in notepad, okay. Whenever I try to prepare this presentation, it was not giving a proper syntax formatted here. And yeah, this is the example for a service configuration, okay. One moment, let me scroll little up. Yeah, I think basic structure we have discussed it. And yeah, this is the one we need to discuss. Basically, service configuration, we already know about the version, okay. Our main motto was to discuss about the services in this particular slide, okay. So basically, this is one of the service, okay. Let's say we have a web as a one service, sorry, it was not getting properly, web as a service, okay. Now that means this is the container name, you can think, okay, which is your web application is running, okay. And then we are going to use a build option, from where it was using your container. Inside the container, this is your path, okay. So like whatever you are specifying here, this is inside the container, okay. So basically it was going to the slash app folder inside the container, and then it was getting the docker file there, okay. So it will build the docker file from there. That is the like exact meaning of it. And coming to the port binding, if you see here, we are specifying hyphen and then 3000 colon 3000, which is in double quotations. Basically what exactly it does was, it is representing this container port and this is host port, okay. So we can change accordingly as per our needs. And also one more thing, we can expose the different port number whenever we have a different services, okay. That is one key point you need to remember. And we can set up the environment like node env is equal to development db host database, like that, okay. So that is the like one option you have to define your environment variables, okay. And depends on database. See, here we have defined a this is the environment variable, right. So this particular depends on keyword is basically, first it will ensures database will run, later it will run the web application, like that, okay. If here it is something like backend, that means first backend will run, then only web application will run, like that, okay. Ensures the dp container starts before the web container, okay. And coming to the volumes, okay, this is also a some one of the option within the services, okay. Volumes here it is different and volumes here it is different, don't get confused, okay. So these are outside components, version, services, volumes, okay. So basically what exactly the volumes here doing was, we are mounting app code from live changes, for making a live changes. Okay, let's say if you sorry, I think I make small mistake. This is the path inside a container, and this is the path outside the container. That means your host. I think here in that case it is the host machine. Okay, okay. Now coming to here, basically, let's say if you uh, let's say if you make any changes within the local machine, so that means your app folder, your code is there. Okay, so while your container is up and running, let's say that changes need to be reflected in your web application. So in that case, what you need to, like, basically if you don't attach volumes, you need to um, restart or rebuild a container. That is the process. Okay, but if you mount a volumes like this hyphen dot, I mean this is the current folder which is app is there in that, and then this is inside a container. Okay, so basically you are mounting your app, that means in your host machine, that means your app code to a container which is here, which is stored here to get a live changes. That is the purpose here. Okay, and coming to the database, this is also a one of the service. Just like this, web is a one of the service, database is also one of the service. So we are going to use a image like official Postgres image. This is the Postgres 13 something official Postgres image, and we are defining the environment variables like Postgres DB is equal to my app, like some credentials, username and credentials to log in into a DB. Okay, and again we are using a volumes. Basically the volumes, what it does was, as I said here, it is also same. So it was in the local and it was in the container. Okay, so it was storing your container data. Whenever your container is up and running, whatever the data, like, it will be presented, that will make sure you to available in your local machine in this particular uh, directory, we can say. Okay, so that is the purpose, and later on in future case you can use this. Okay, that is the main use case of this. And also here port binding, same, we are using 5432 in container and 5432 in the host machine. Let's say if you wanted to access a database service, you need to go to the 5432 port number. Okay, and yeah, that's it. And this is a volume, we discuss about this in the upcoming slide. Okay, and yeah, I think we are good to move. Yeah, coming to here, we are now going with the volumes and networks. Okay, so basically what is the volumes? Okay, basically, let's say, as I said, right, to maintain persistent data, that means to make sure the data is up, or keeping the data handy. Let's say if some next time if we restart a container, obviously container itself don't store the data. Okay, so in that case we are attaching that particular volume to a container in the next time to access your data. That is the main purpose of it. Okay, and hmm, here we have a named volumes where we can give our own name. Okay, Docker manages the storage, that is the like key point here. And bind mounts, here basically app host directories. Okay, so like whatever the directories is there, or let's say if we have a live changes need to be triggered as I shown in the earlier example, that is the purpose here. Bind mounts, and temp f mount, it is basically a temp fs mounts, a temporary in memory storage. Okay, and this is a kind of example for volumes. Okay, and and key important point was, without volumes data is lost when container stops. That is the main purpose why the volumes is came into picture. and we can discuss about this in the example also. Okay, like how exactly the what is that the exam sorry how exactly the example looks like. Okay, so this is the example how the volume configuration is done. If you see here, we are going to define a volume as a keyword to define a volumes, and then db data, it is a volume name. Okay, we can give any name. Okay, this is your volume name of your volume. And driver local, it is basically a kind of default I mean we are using that in a local, that is the meaning of it. Okay, and if you see the services volumes, yeah, if you see the services, we are using this particular volume here. Okay, above we have created where we are using here. Okay, so we have a services which is a database as a service. In that volumes, in above example also I have shown you right here. So this volume is different and this volume is different, so that is exactly what we are talking here. Okay, so if you see here, we are using those volumes here, db volume, whatever data, volume we have created. So whenever the server starts, this particular data will be maintained in this particular volume. Okay, and it is basically a bound mount which maps local configuration directory. That is something different than volumes. Okay, and moving to the networks. Okay, basically networks, we all know, volumes to maintain a data persistence. Networks is to communicate, to make a communication among the different containers. Let's say we have a front end web container, back end api container, database db container. Okay, services can talk to each other with the help of service names. Okay, by default networks creates automatically, and custom networks for isolation, for making more security or isolation, we can use this custom networks. Okay, and I will show one of the example also. One moment. This is the example what I yeah, this is the example. If you see here, network configuration, this is the example. Okay, here what exactly we are doing was, this is the network what the keyword we are using, and this is your network name. Okay, and this is your like what exactly the by defaultly the driver sorry the network type will be the bridge. Okay, so this is your front end network. Okay, this is front end was your network name. Okay, the actual network name. Okay, and here the backend will be the actual network name. Okay, but this is the how syntax you need to be created. And like networks is created, then in the services, how we are going to use a network to make a communication among the like different services. So in services, let's say if you have a web application as a container. Okay, so in that we need to define networks as a keyword. Okay, so again this network is different, this network is different. Here we are creating the networks outside. Here within the services we are using that networks. Okay, so basically we are using hyphen front end. Basically it connects to a front end network only. Okay, we with the from web container we can able to talk to the front end container. And here API, here we are able to talk with the front end as well as back end. And in the DB we are able to talk only with the back end. Okay, so those are basically a containers. Sorry, those are basically a networks. Uh, like what exactly need to be talked with what. Okay, so moving to the next, if you see here, how exactly the workflow is there, and some commands regarding the workflow. Okay, These are some essential commands whenever you are learning or exploring the Docker Compose. You need to be aware of these commands. Okay, so first one was Docker Compose up. Basically, this command is used to start all the containers. Okay, and Docker Compose up -d. Basically, it does in a detached mode. Okay, it will show on the terminal basically. Okay, and it will done on the detached mode. It will start all the containers which is in background. Okay, Docker Compose down. It removes your containers. Okay, it removes all the containers, and Docker Compose logs. It will views the logs from all the services which is running. Okay, like different services, back end, front end, different containers. Okay, Docker Compose PS. Basically, it will list the all running services which is up and running. It will list with the help of PS as a word. Docker Compose exec web bash. Basically, it will access a container shell. Okay, so Docker Compose exec is a to go inside a container. Okay, and web was the container name. Okay, this is the container name, and this is the like default path bin bash like that. Okay, so to enter into any specific container, this is the command we need to use. And coming to here, how the DevOps workflow is will be done. If you see the development, basically the developer writes a Docker Compose file. Okay, it is their duty, and it will they will commit into a Git. Okay, which is a version control system, and then the team members can replicate the same environment. Okay, so how the team collaboration will be done here? By sharing the same file across the team. By that, the team collaboration will be done. Environment parity will be done. Okay, that means dev involvement will be paired with staging will be paired with develop production like that. Okay, and whenever we are onboarding new developers, that we can start the work very quickly. That is the like advantage here. Okay, and one of the best practice here was maintaining a .env file. Okay, so basically uh, .env file ensures for environment specific variables. Okay, instead of directly using sensitive data within the compose file, we need to make sure to use a .env file, and then we need to use those particular id here. Okay, that is the use case. And moving to the next, if you see the real world example, and first I will show the real world example, and then we will come to the use case. Okay, so coming to the real world example, yeah, if you see here, this is the like a real world example. Okay, complete example is there. I will explain what like a complete example. If you see here, this is the like basic syntax, version, service. In that services is there. Nginx was the one of the service, web was the one of the service, database was the one of the service, cache was the one of the service, and then volumes and networks. Okay, so this is like outside components, volumes, networks, services, version. Okay, so inside version, as we see already, there are multiple things inside the version. We are going to use like official image, port mapping can be done, and then we can use the volumes. Okay, where here a binding is done, binding with the local, okay, local host, and depends on basically nginx is depends on web. That means first this web container will start, then only the nginx will start. And here if you see here, for web, database is the depends on cache also. First these containers start, then only web start. If you see the database, for database there is no dependent, and cache there is no dependent. Okay, so first this will start, and then it will start. Okay, and then it will start, web will start. That is a like sequence will be followed here. And if you see the environment variables, we are using this, and like whatever the directly in the current directory, we are building the image from the current directory. That means this is in the host only. Okay, so currently you are in the host only, you are not inside the container. That is the like, I mean the Docker compose file also is outside the container only. Okay, to get and start the containers, we are using a compose file. That is the purpose here. Okay, and if you see here, I think nothing more different or complicated we can see. Whatever we have covered, this is also a same thing we can see again. Okay, and with different use cases. Okay, so earlier we have seen small example, like here different services, and then different options in that. Okay, so if you see here, this is also one of the service, this is also one of the service, but we are already building a image, but here we are taking a image, okay, existing image, and that means from scratch we are building the Docker file with our code. Here we are going to the Docker registry and getting this image. That is a different, and enrollment same, here also same, and depends on there is no depends on here, and volumes here there is no volumes actually. Okay, and here there is a volumes. Okay, that means we no need to store this particular data to our host, but here we need to store our data in DB data. Okay, so whatever the data to maintain a persistent storage across the container, we are using this. Okay, and coming to the volumes, we are just created one volume with the name DB data, and the same thing is used here only. Okay, and coming to the networks, whatever the networks we have used, like front end, back end, we are using the same network here. Okay, so yeah, that is the thing here. And finally, these are some best practices. Use a specific image name instead of latest. Why? Because there might be vulnerable images also, we need to be image specific name. Okay, and define the health checks for services. That is also one of the thing. And use multi-stage builds for optimization to decrease the like number of layers in the image. Okay, and keep the secrets in environment file. This is one of the security best practice. Use the network for service isolation. Okay, better to use a dedicated network for different services for making a secure and isolation. Okay, and these are some common interview questions. You can see what is the difference between Docker run and Docker compose. Basically, Docker run manages a single containers, and Docker compose maintains multiple containers of a same application. Okay, and how do containers communicate with the help of a Docker maintained network. Okay, so by using a names as a host names within the same networks. Okay, so that is how we are communicating. And what happens to data when containers stop? Obviously we will lose the data if no volumes or bind modes are available. Okay, so that is the thing here, and I think we are good to conclude, and stay tuned for more videos. Thank you so much for watching.